All right, let's talk some Niners here. You're watching the 49ers Report by Chat Sports. My name is Chase Sr., and let's do some Niners minicamp news. I want to take a look at 10 players who balled out during Niners mandatory minicamp. This is the last time that the Niners were on the practice field together until training camp at the end of July. Who rose to the occasion? Who impressed this coaching staff? Let's dive right in. One of the biggest winners of mandatory minicamp and one of the biggest standouts, linebacker Dee Winters. And when San Francisco drafted Nick Martin, he got the message that he needs to start developing and continuing to play well and build off of what he did last year. And his battle for trying to be a starter alongside Fred Warner is not going to be easy during training camp and in the preseason. We've seen some flashes from Dee Winters. Now it's time for him to put it together. And with what he did during mandatory minicamp, he's off to a pretty good start. Looked more confident, looked more aggressive with no Fred Warner, just veteran maintenance there. He was the most experienced linebacker on the field, and it showed. Had a really nice pass breakup on a seam ball to Isaiah Hodgins. And anytime an offense can get a wide receiver matched up against a linebacker, they start to salivate, right? Because that is a mismatch that you want to try to exploit. But Dee Winters held up very well. And last year, he had a top 10 coverage grade among all linebackers in the game. So he showed that ability on that specific play. It was a highlight of one of the spring practices for the Niners. And the playing style with Winters, always intriguing. A bat out of hell, but he needs to tame that a little bit, and the game needs to slow down a bit. It's great that he plays fast, but sometimes at that linebacker spot, you need your instincts to be on display, because if you don't have a good feel for the game, you'll take yourself out of a position to make a play. He got some praise from new Niners defensive coordinator Robert Saleh, who's obviously back with San Francisco, and Saleh said this about Winters: he's been impressive. It's easy when it's OTAs and you don't have to deal with run-pass reads and everything's a little bit slower, but he's got something to him. I don't want to jinx him or anything, but if he stays on his trajectory and he attacks these next 40 days and he does the right things, I think he's due for a heck of a season. He's one of my breakout candidates for 2025. Standout number 2 is wide receiver Demarcus Robinson, who the Niners signed on a cheap deal in free agency as he left the Los Angeles Rams with no Brandon Ayuk, no Ricky Pearsall, and then Jawan Jennings of late dealing with a calf injury. Robinson was able to take advantage of those injuries, and he was the elder statesman among the wideouts. Every year that he's been in the NFL, his teams have made the playoffs. Hopefully that's a good omen for the Niners. So he's a very experienced player who's played in a lot of high-leverage games. He's, of course, very well-versed in Kyle Shanahan's type of offense, spending the last 2 years under Sean McVay. He became the go-to target for both Brock Purdy and Mac Jones when he was running with the 1s and the 2s. Last year, Robinson was north of 16 yards per catch. That was top 10 among all wideouts in the National Football League. And while he's not a burner, he ran like a 4.6 in the pre-draft process many years ago. He can make plays downfield, has that ability to really take the top off of the defense and get behind that third level. We've been talking a lot about Jacob Cowing of late because he has had a terrific offseason, and he balled out during the spring. Perhaps the biggest spring and offseason winner for San Francisco. Trained with Brock Purdy and Ricky Pearsall throughout this offseason. And last year, coming out of Arizona, 4.4 speed. And I think that speed is going to be valuable for San Francisco in 2025. But he was a little bit sloppy with his routes. This year, going into year 2, we saw him maintain speed through his cuts and in and out of his breaks, when he couldn't do that last year, as we saw in the preseason and sometimes during games, and that's why Kyle Shanahan didn't trust him all that much. With his ability to be utilized on some of these gadget plays, end arounds, bubble screens, reverses, and other trick plays, I think that he can help replace what Deebo Samuel did in that regard for San Francisco for many of years. Tre Brown, another minicamp standout here, and he's really trying to fend off rookie Upton Stout. Tre Brown was the top nickel corner during the spring, doesn't have a lot of experience playing on the inside. When the Seahawks drafted him out of Oklahoma in the 4th round a few years ago, he was an outside guy, and he's continued to play on the outside. He's been injured a lot, but he got some looks playing on the inside. Earlier this offseason, we were talking about him prior to the draft as maybe being the leader in the clubhouse to lock down that spot. It's not going to be easy. This is going to be one of the better roster battles in training camp and in the preseason, trying to fend off Upton Stout. But the positional versatility for Brown is notable. He showed that he can play along the inside. And then when Deommodore Lenoir was not practicing, Tre Brown filled in nicely on the outside. Speaking of Upton Stout, he might be small in stature. He might be small when he steps on the scale. Doesn't play like it. And doesn't play like it and doesn't look small. This is a cut-up athlete who led all DBs in the bench press at the NFL Combine. He also flew. He has legitimate 4.4 speed. And there was one really good rep where he was able to hang with Jordan Watkins, who's a 4.3 speed guy. And I love how Upton Stout, we saw this in college, doesn't play scared, doesn't play timid, isn't afraid to hit you, makes plays against the run, and he provides this Niners defense with constant, sticky coverage. 5 standouts down, 5 more players who balled out during mandatory minicamp to go. But first, here is a live look at our subscriber tracker here on the 49ers Report. You see the digits here to my right? So far, 162,348 people are subscribed to the show. If you want elite, top-notch Niners coverage every single day, year-round, hit that sub button. How many subs can we pick up on this show? I want to see how many new real ones will lock us in and subscribe today. We have a fantastic deal that we want to tell you about. Thanks to our friends at Fanatics, by the way. This Niners Nike shirt, limited time only, is on sale right now. It was $40. It's been knocked down to $28. I was speaking with some of the higher-ups here at Chat Sports, and they were saying this shirt, it's selling like crazy with our link, chatsports.com/SF shirt. So join the movement, hop on board right now, save some money, and look good while repping the Niners. Chatsports.com/SF shirt. You use that link, it'll take you to Fanatics. Fanatics will know that I sent you right here on the 49ers Report. So utilize that to your advantage and start repping the Niners here ahead of the 2025 season. To our last 5 standouts, rookie Jordan Watkins. We've also talked a lot about him over the last couple of weeks because he's been very impressive during rookie minicamp, OTAs, and mandatory minicamp. He got the praise of his quarterback and Brock Purdy when Purdy said, Watkins? Yeah, the 4th-round pick out of Ole Miss. He's been balling. He also earned some praise from Kyle Shanahan, who notoriously has been hard on wide receivers because Shanahan played receiver in college, most notably at Texas with the Longhorns. And so Shanahan, that is his specialty. He is very hard on wide receivers, the nuances of that position, both from a mechanical standpoint, route running, knowing when to break off a route, blocking, and just doing some of the little things. And Watkins able to impress his quarterback and his head coach. That's a big win-win right there. And what stands out about Watkins, especially when I scouted him at Ole Miss, there is a speed and fluidity to his game that is really impressive. Like, he's a 4.3 guy, but in and out of his cuts and breaks, he's very fluid, a very good route runner, good footwork. He tracks the ball really well. And if the Niners can really have him unlock that speed, because at times he doesn't play up to that 4.3 level, he can end up being a steal with where the Niners got him. He also doesn't really break stride much. That's that tracking the ball very well component to his game. And in this Kyle Shanahan offense, I think that Shanahan can really utilize him on some of these crossing routes. He also has a very strong lower body, big, thick legs that could allow him to break some tackles and pick up yards after the catch and be dynamic in that regard. Christian McCaffrey, also a minicamp standout. It was great to see him on the field and healthy throughout the spring. That was a big goal of his, and he was able to accomplish that goal. Did not miss a spring practice. I think you can chalk that up as a huge win. I'm not going to make a huge deal of the speed component right now because he was coming off bilateral Achilles tendonitis, which is very serious, and a really severe knee injury. I mean, we saw him in that big, bulky brace. And so for him to come back off of those injuries, we're talking plural, not singular here, it's a good sign that he is healthy at this point. He even said it himself. My goal throughout the spring was not to get back to my 2023 form when I was the NFL Offensive Player of the Year. My goal was to practice every day and to feel good. And he said he felt great. And he just needed to show that he was healthy. He was able to do that throughout the spring. And now from this point on, toward training camp, the preseason, and the regular season, that's when you try to fine-tune the quick twitch, the explosiveness, and that speed. Austen Pleasants may be a sneaky winner of the spring. Larry Kruger, friend of the show, I hop on his show, The Krug Show, every single Friday. He had talked highly of Austen Pleasants, saying that he was moving around very well. He looked awesome at that offensive tackle spot. This offseason, the Niners made it a point to retain him. They had so many injuries along the offensive line and at offensive tackle late last year that they had to pick up Austen Pleasants, journeyman, Charlie Heck, journeyman. The Niners made it a point to keep Austen Pleasants on the team. Offensive line coach Chris Forster has spoken very highly of him as well. Nicholas Petit-Frere, a former third-round pick out of Ohio State who the Niners signed back a couple of months ago, he got cut. Part of the reason why he got cut, in addition to just looking slow and sluggish, is because of the play of Austen Pleasants. And he could earn that top backup offensive tackle role. He'll compete with former first-round pick Andre Dillard. He'll compete with Spencer Burford. But Austen Pleasants might have the inside track there. Let's talk about 7th-round pick from the 2024 NFL Draft out of Florida State, Tatum Bethune, at that linebacker spot. Fred Warner didn't need to practice during OTAs and mandatory minicamp. He got that bag, and he's trying to save some mileage on the tires because obviously there's some tread there. He's only missed one game throughout his entire NFL career. But while Fred Warner was on hand and he was watching his fellow linebackers practice, he did not actually partake in practices. He doesn't need to at this point. It's all about getting him right and healthy and fresh for the regular season. And so with no Fred Warner, Tatum Bethune was the starting middle linebacker on that first-team defense. That tells me he could be linebacker 4 in making this team. Fred Warner, linebacker 1, Nick Martin, linebacker 2, Dee Winters, linebacker 3, and then Tatum Bethune, linebacker 4. And Bethune is a player, and I talked about this last year when the Niners drafted him, and with what we saw in the preseason, he's tough. He's instinctive, has a really good feel for the game, and that helps make up for the lack of speed that he has. He is not a blazer by any means, and that's probably why he can't play weak side linebacker or strong side linebacker, because you do have to have speed there, shooting the gaps against the run, trying to get out to the sideline on some stretch plays, stuff like that. But as a middle linebacker, you have to be smart and heady. You have to be cerebral. You have to have good feel and instincts because you're the middle man. And Bethune has that. He's also good against the run. And with what he did during the spring, improves his chances of making the 53-man roster. And then lastly, quarterback Mac Jones. When I did my Niners minicamp winners and losers, I had listed Mac Jones as a loser from that Wednesday practice because he threw a bad pick. He had a man open, and he didn't put enough on that football. The pluses of what Jones did in the spring, with some context, which is always important, is that he made some plays downfield. And he was fearless in pushing the ball downfield, throwing the long ball, being aggressive. Now, when you're trying to learn a new offense, there are going to be some ups and downs, especially in a complex system that Kyle Shanahan is running, which is very hard for quarterbacks to master. Mac Jones did a pretty good job of that, so he really stood out for those reasons throughout the spring as well. Before we dip on out of here, be sure to give me a follow on X and Instagram. I put out so much Niners content, long form, short form here on YouTube, but I'm always talking about the Niners on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior, so hit me up and give me a follow over there.